Spain is the third largest country of Europe. It is located in southwestern part of Europe. It occupies part of the Iberian Peninsula. Spain shares frontiers with France, Portugal, and Morocco. Francisco Franco was born on December 4, 1892 in El Ferrol, Spain, a northwestern port city with a history of shipbuilding. The man and his family had served in the Navy for generations, and the young Franco expected to follow in their footsteps. However, the economic and territorial aftermath of the Spanish-American War led to a reduction in the Navy, and after completing his primary education at a Catholic school, Franco was forced to enlist at the Infantry Academy at Toledo instead. He graduated 3 years later with below average marks. From 1912 to 1926, Francisco Franco volunteered to serve in Spain's recently acquired protectorate, Morocco. This country was staging a resistance to occupation. Franco distinguished himself with his fearlessness, professionalism, and ruthlessness, and was frequently promoted. For nearly 4 decades following the conflict, Franco, who became known as El Caudillo, would rule Spain through a repressive dictatorship. Immediately following the war, military tribunals were held that led to tens of thousands more being executed or imprisoned. Franco also outlawed unions in all religions except for Catholicism, as well as banning the Catalan and Basque languages. To enforce his power over Spain, he established a vast network of secret police.
Relations between Hitler and Franco were never very friendly. Hitler seriously thought of invading the Iberian Peninsula. Although Franco tried to avoid entering into the war, Spain really did projects of the defense of the country if there were attacks of some of the contenders. At first, the mass of the Spain army was placed in the southern part of the country to prevent an allied attack. However, Franco ordered the division to move towards the French border after Hitler threatened him as a possible invasion. Franco had built a defensive barrier along the Pyrenees, which has never been completed, and it's called the Line P. It began to be built in 1944, and its ultimate goal was to make the border impermeable. The Spanish army at that time thought that with these works of fortification could be stopped an army that enters by some of the mountain passes towards Spain. Today, it has become completely obsolete and belongs to the recent story. Spain's economy during the period of autarky describes the period of almost permanent economic crisis suffered by Spain from the end of the Civil War in 1950s, characterized by a long and deep economic depression, which led to the serious deterioration of the conditions of life of the citizens, the growth of misery, the black market, and the supposed to be mysterious setback in the levels of the welfare of the population in the least 150 years of history. The guidelines of the economic policy followed some of the guidelines of autarkic character in the atmosphere of the international isolation. The first autarkic stage during the 1940s was characterized by the Great Depression of the production, the shortage of all kinds of goods, and the interruption of the process of modernization and growth initiated in some areas during the Second Republic. Social policy during the dictatorship of the General Franco was an element of the legitimacy and sought of the cohesion of the Spanish society, its control, and the absence of social conflict. Health insurance protected the economically weak, leaving out the vast majority of the workers of the countryside and the other sectors of economy. The regime never has considered the possibility of universalizing those social rights for the whole nation. Its criterion of application was the labor, reason why the financial collaboration of the state was secondary. Among the projects and achievements of the 1950s was a ditch only suppressed later, which sought the cultural inferior results to those offered in Spanish society.